Hi, readers. I am here again to talk to you about nonfiction reading. You all are such curious minds. You have so many questions and so many wonders, and sometimes the answers to those wonders are in your nonfiction books. We are reading to learn. We are reading to learn all about different topics and main ideas. Now let me share my screen so that you can follow along, and remember that when you follow along, you should be looking at the visuals and anything else on my screen because it might help you have a better understanding. So again, we're reading to learn. Like I said, we wonder so many things about this world, and a lot of the time, nonfiction books can give us the answers to those things. It's fun to discover different topics like sharks, trains, life on Mars. This week, our learning target is that we can find the main ideas in our books. We know that readers find the main idea of a book in a couple of different ways. They do this by asking, what is the text mostly about? We think about the who and the what. We put it together. That's the main idea. The who and the what make up what the text is mostly about. And remember, text features can help us to figure out the who and the what as well. They're like clues guiding us. Today, I want to introduce you to another way to help you find the main idea, to help you decide what the main idea is. Pop-out sentences. Sound interesting, huh? Readers find the main idea of the book in a couple of different ways. They do this by asking, what's the text mostly about? Taking the who and the what, and by finding the pop-out sentence. A pop-out sentence is a heading in disguise. You all know that a heading, thanks to your work last week with Mrs. Whitson, you all know that a heading tells you the topic of what you're about to read. It tells you what you will be reading in that section. A pop-out sentence tells you, this is what this section is about. Hey, listen. Or, hey, look, this is important. It pops out at you. It jumps off the page and it signals for you to think, oh, wow, that's what this section is going to be about. That is the main idea that I'm going to be thinking about the whole time. A pop-out sentence really pops out at you. A pop-out sentence will tell you what the main idea of a section or even what the whole book is about. It depends. It is usually found at the beginning of the section that you are reading. And sometimes the author will do you a favor, and it even just says, in this chapter, you will read about. Well, I mean, that's basically the author yelling at you saying, hey, listen, this is what you're going to be reading about, so you better pay attention to this sentence. It pops out. It tells you either very directly or more creatively what you are going to be reading about. Let's look at some examples. Counting on change. This is the beginning of our book, Environment, A World of Change. Okay, so counting on change. Makes me think it's going to be about change, but let's keep reading. Some people say that the only thing that stays the same is change. In this world, change is something we can count on. That stands out to me. That says we are going to be reading about change that always happens. I think I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write down my main idea, thanks to that pop-out sentence. My main idea is going to be, in our world, change will always happen. And that's in my own words. In our world, change will always happen. In our world, change will always happen. That's my main idea. Now, this is the same book, but it's a different section. I bet I could find the pop-out sentence of this section too. Okay, let's see if I can find a pop-out sentence that tells me the main idea of this section in my book, Environment, A World of Change. So same book, but a different section. This section is called World of Nature. Let's start with the big world around us. Oh my gosh, that first sentence, it says what we're starting with. That pops out to me. Let's start with the big world around us. Our land, water, and air seem pretty set as they are. It is hard to imagine them changing, but they do. Okay, well, I'm saying that the main idea is that our world changes. Our world changes. Our world changes. That's my main idea. Okay, that's pretty cool. That sentence really stood out to me. It says, let's start with. It tells you exactly what we're going to start learning in this section. Now, if I move on to another section, I can find the main idea of this as well. I'm looking and it says water. Water is a part of a cycle that is constantly changing. That tells me what this is going to be about. It's my main idea. It's so clear. It's popping. It's in my face. Water is a part of a cycle that is constantly changing. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to think of what the main idea would be. I'm going to read the rest to make sure. Water is a part of a cycle that is constantly changing. Water in its liquid form heats up and becomes a gas. The gas rises into the air. It cools and comes back to Earth as rain and snow, or it freezes and becomes ice. Temperature changes water's form. It changes and changes some more. Who knows? The water you swim in today may partly be made of the water you bathed in last year. So yeah, the pop-out sentence says to me that water is changing, or water changes. That's the main idea. I'm going to say that the main idea is that water always changes. It wasn't enough for me there, friends. I want you to notice, it wasn't enough for me to just say that water always changes after looking at the pop-out sentence. I can't forget about what we learned before. We need to look and still make sure, even after we read that pop-out sentence, that the whole section is mostly about water changing. We need to make sure that just because we look at the pop-out sentence, we don't ignore what the section is mostly about. The pop-out sentence can point us to what the section is mostly about, but you can't base your main idea just off that pop-out sentence. You need to use everything you've learned. Again, same book, Environment, A World of Change, but a different section. Let's find the main idea of this section. Rocks seem pretty solid, don't they? It's hard to imagine them changing, but they do, of course. It's my pop-out sentences. More than one, my pop-out sentences. Now let's go ahead and let's write that down as our main idea. Oh, you caught me. Not quite. We need to read the rest to make sure that it really is about rocks changing. Rocks always change. That's what I get from the pop-out sentence, but let's read the rest to make sure that that's the case. Rocks seem pretty solid, don't they? It's hard to imagine them changing, but they do, of course. They break down and they come together. Rocks can be broken down bit by bit. It happens through weathering. That is the process by which wind and water break away at rocks. They become sediment. These are rock bits and pieces such as gravel, sand, and dust. When wind or water moves the sediment, it is called erosion. So I have to say, yes, indeed, this section was mostly about the fact that rocks always change. So after looking at that pop-out sentence and continuing my reading to make sure that it's what it's mostly about, I can say that my main idea is that rocks always change. That's the main idea of this section of the book. Rocks always change. Now again, you can't just base your main idea off of one of these things or the other. You have to look at them both now that you have this knowledge. Readers find the main idea of the book by asking themselves, what is the text mostly about? And by finding the pop-out sentence. I do not want you relying on one or the other. You are doing both. It's a team. And remember, look towards the beginning of the new paragraph or the new section for a pop-out sentence. Put it in your own words and turn it into a main idea. You can't just copy down a pop-out sentence and put it as your main idea. Nope, you're putting it in your own words. You'll get the chance to practice doing this today for yourself. And when you do this, yes, draw your attention to the pop-out sentence, but make sure that you are choosing the pop-out sentence accurately. You can't forget about all that we've learned so far. That would just be silly. You are continuing to think, what is the text mostly about? And looking for that pop-out sentence to make double sure that you have the right main idea of your whole book or your section.